Who's the most overrated team in the Big Ten? Is Wisconsin getting to a bowl game, or will they miss it for a second straight year? Will the Big Ten win its third straight national championship? We're discussing all that today on the Locked On Big Ten Squad.
You're talking ball with the Big Ten Squad, sponsored by Game Time. From USC to Ohio State, from Michigan to Oregon, from Nebraska to Washington, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming Big Ten weekend. No hurt feelings and thin skin allowed. Squad up, you're part of the Big Ten Squad.
Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome into this week's Big Ten Squad. I'm Spencer McLaughlin. Roman Tomashaw of Locked On Huskies is here. Mark Culkin of Locked On USC is here as well. Ryan Herrings is zoomed all the way in. I mean, all the way in. I'm sure he's going to get that sorted out here as we roll along with a number of things to get to today. We've got a four-man squad this week. Herrings will be here. And I think that a four-man squad, it reminds me of walking to a house that is, run down and small, and you don't say, oh, this is not a nice place. You say, no, it's quaint. It's got character. That's the Big Ten squad this week. We are a quaint, character-laden house. So let's just hop right into the big question here, Roman, and that is, for your money, who is the most overrated team in the Big Ten?
All right. No, the big question is what just happened with Ryan? We're off to a roaring start here. I was trying to let you get through that intro. That was absolutely wild. Somewhat horrifying. Whoever's behind the scenes directing that. Great.
Well,
great
that depends on how much you like seeing Ryan Herring's face. For the Locked On Badgers people out there.
It had absolutely nothing to do with
We're going to see if Ryan can figure this out by the time we get it right. Yeah, there we go. That's a quick solution. So,
all right, yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Man, that's great.
Football.
Yeah, football.
Okay. Let's reset here. Where, Spencer, I was really wrestling with this, where I wanted to be the Washington guy and just take a shot at Oregon because they're returning so many players, right? All two starters from last year's team.
43% of their returning production. Yeah, don't forget about it. 43% strong.
But I'm going to go bold here. And I'm going to say, because we don't know what's going on at quarterback. We don't know what's going on at a whole lot of different positions outside of safety, where they've got one of the best players in the nation, and wide receiver, where they do have the best player in the nation. I'm going to go with Ohio State here, where they are losing so much production. We know they recruit super well. We know they do so much well behind the scenes in terms of development, in terms of making sure everybody is ready to step in. But I have legitimate questions. I still think they're going to be a fantastic team this year. But right now, I would say, is this a team that's really ready to get all the way back to the national championship? Because those are the expectations they're going to have to live up to this season. And I have a lot of questions about that team right now.
I think that's a fair response, Frank. I'll give my team later. I'll give you a hint. It's not Ohio State. And by the way, Mark, the question here is overrated, not team that you want to hate on the most. So if you say UCLA, I know that you just didn't understand the question, so I wanted to make that clear.
It's hard to call a school overrated when they're probably ranked 16th through 18th in the conference. So they're probably positioned where they belong. No, instead of going with Ohio State, which is an obvious choice, instead of saying, well, USC, they're always overrated, I'll take that other school up there by the lakes in Michigan. That's a lot of defense that they have to replace. And I get it. They've got their system in place. You're just not going to plug in a quarterback and say, all right, go. You're going to be good. Michigan is probably the other overrated team. I know some people have them rated as number two, high as number two, flip-flopping with Penn State, depending on which publication you want to, go by. But yeah, I can stick with Michigan. I think they could be really overrated. They could be in for a similar season like they had last year. Last year, they were, offense deficient. I think this year, they're replacing that defensive line. And granted, they recruit well, but you're replacing all of that defensive line, including the two guys in the middle. And when you don't have that, it makes life a little bit more difficult for those younger guys that they're returning in the back.
Yeah, I look at Michigan. I love what they're going to be in 2026 because I'm with you, Mark, that that defense is just it's going to be good. I think there's a certain floor that we saw with Michigan last year because they were still undergoing a bunch of change. Their quarterback play was abysmal, I'd imagine, even if it's Bryce Underwood, which I hope it is, because I think he's just got so much upside compared to Mikey Keene. Like, I think that there's a real chance for Michigan to have, like you said, kind of a similar year where it's just a bunch of turnover. But for 2026, I might have them as my Big Ten favorite right now, depending on how Bryce Underwood looks this season. That's still not my pick. So Herrings with a semi-respectable Zoom level down there, my man. Which team do you look at and say, I don't think they're living up to what people think they will be?
Yeah, Michigan was one of the ones I wrote down. I think it's a really good one. Michigan has a reputation as a great recruiting program, but there's a lot of development that happens there, and they can't just readily replace upperclassmen first-round picks on the defensive line in the secondary. But I actually went with Indiana. So the thing with Indiana,
I have company.
Yes.
I have company. I have a friend.
Let's go.
I have a friend, which is hard to find as neutral arbiter of all things college football. It's hard to find friends who agree with all of my incredibly well-reasoned takes. But yes, Herrings, continue.
You're going to like this too, because I'm going to use a movie analogy, and I know you and I are into movies. So like a one-off does not make a multi-year success, right? Tremors, everybody loves Tremors. Great sci-fi movie. The rest of them were terrible. All I'm saying is one good year is, now my camera's really following me. One good year at Indiana does not make it, several great years. You're going to lose Rourke. I like Mendoza. I don't know if I like him as much as what Rourke did for them last year. And then you look at the schedule, like, it's harder this year. You had Notre Dame and Ohio State last year, who quite frankly roughed both of them up in the front seven. Indiana didn't have a great answer there. Now you got to go to Kinnick. You're going to have Illinois. You got to go to Oregon. You got to go to Penn State. Kingsman said, manners maketh the man. Well, schedules maketh the team and the win-loss record. I think the schedule's harder. I don't feel great about the offense replacing some of those pieces. And I see where their people are kind of putting them. They're penciling into some spots. Indiana, prior to last year, had one winning season in like the last 12, 13, 14 years. I know Cignetti is a dude, but that program, that infrastructure isn't ready to repeat what they did last year. I think Indiana is the most overrated team in the Big Ten.
Gosh, that's just sharp take coming there from Herrings. I will point out, we didn't plan that because Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers isn't here. He was unfortunately unable to make it at the last moment. But first of all, the Kingsman take 10 out of 10. Second of all, I love that you have Disney's Haunted Mansion feature in the basement where you have the statues that follow you as you walk down the queue. I love that your camera has that, Ryan. That's just that's peak broadcasting, quite frankly. So none of us have any idea what's going on, but I just want a lot more of that. I want to go to what you said and why Indiana is my pick there for being the most overrated in the Big Ten next year. I like Curtis Rourke a lot, and I know what Goins is saying as he's listening to this show, but he's screaming at me because he's told me this so many times throughout the offseason. Well, Indiana doesn't have to run the ball, or they can run the ball more. They're not as quarterback reliant. We've got a much deeper team. That's the best Goins that I got.
Pretty solid.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I worked way too hard on it before the show when he said he wasn't going to be here. But I see that angle, but the schedule is night and day. You've got the 4 games that you listed there. I think if you go 2-2, Indiana might be a playoff team. I don't know that you're going 2-2. Their preseason win total is 8.5. I think that is overvaluing the Hoosiers with that. Yes, they return a good amount. I don't think they return enough to be where they were a season ago. But speaking of Ryan Herrings, he's the host of Locked On Wisconsin. And if Wisconsin doesn't make a bowl game, they would go under their win total, and we'd be talking about them getting a new head coach. Is that going to take place? We'll just have to find out next on the Locked On Big Ten Squad. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Plus, if you're listening to or watching the show, you probably love college football because it's the greatest sport on planet Earth. And guess what? All the college football stuff that you want is over there. You have got win totals. You have got national title odds, conference championship odds, Heisman odds. You can even bet on individual games right now. You can bet on individual college football games, which are about 4.5 months away. That's a glorious thing to be able to say. It's better than 5.5 months, which is what we had, of course, 1 month ago. So make sure you go over to FanDuel, check out everything they've got. NBA, college football, they've got it all. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com. Claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Check them out at FanDuel.com. Wisconsin has the third lowest win total in the entire Big Ten at 5.5. They missed a bowl game last year for the first time in like 2 decades. I think Roman and I weren't even going to school yet. It was so long ago, and we were just barely alive. So, Herrings, we'll start with you since the Badgers are your squad. Another brutal schedule for Wisconsin pops up in 2025, which is not great timing for Luke Fickell, who's maybe starting to face some questions about his long-term job security there in Madison. 5.5. Over, under. Where are you going?
I'm going to first try to do something quick. Tiny. Zoom out further. Okay. My camera's name, and it's supposed to it's AI powered. It didn't work. We're going to move on. Okay.
Need the backstory on Tiny.
Its name is Tiny. That's how it came. We're going over. So here's the thing. 3 years ago, Paul Chryst, last season in Madison, I took the over. And I failed. 2 years ago, Luke Fickell comes in. I took the over, and I failed. Last year, I took the over, and I failed. It's not going to happen 4 times in a row, right?
This is the definition of
okay.
insanity.
Hold on. Let's
have reasons, though.
Let's back up. Let's back up there for a moment, Herrings, before you explain your well thought out reasoning, as I'm sure you have. When you took the over last year, please don't tell me you ever said the phrase, "Well, I've taken the over the last 2 years. It's not going to happen a third year in a row." So. We're going over, guys.
Listen, I've spent a lot of time on this. At the end of every year in the last several years, I said, I am not taking the over again. And then listen, the portal happens, spring, everybody's in the best shape of their lives. You get a new coach, you get a new transfer, or whatever it is. Here's the thing, though. So this is where I would go over, and this is where I'm basing my reason on. Last year, the Badgers were 16th in the Big Ten in passing efficiency. There's only 18 teams. That's pretty bad. You can bring in a Billy Edwards. I think he can be decent. We talked about
worse?
It. Geez, I don't even know.
Purdue and somebody else, probably
Purdue and maybe Northwestern. I would be guesses. I don't know.
Yeah, you're probably right. Anyway, continue.
Either way, I think you go from really bad to okay. Now, keep in mind, the Badgers won 5 games last year with this same schedule. They played Bama last year. They played Oregon last year. They played Penn State last year. They played USC. They played Iowa. The Badgers had a really hard schedule last year and won 5 games with one of the worst quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Do you know how many teams are in the FBS? I do, because I had to look up tackles for loss for Wisconsin. There's 134 teams in the Big Ten. You know who finished 134th last year? The Badgers.
Oh, boy.
Dead last. So they were 16th in turnover margin in the conference, dead last in TFLs, 16th in passing rating, and they finished with 5 wins against a hellacious schedule. If you just get decent, and turnovers, a lot of turnovers is luck. We know that. You know, there's self-made turnovers, but there's also just you get a bad bounce, a tip pass, whatever. You get decent turnover luck. Okay-ish quarterback play, which, by the way, Billy Edwards was the definition of okay-ish last year, which Badger fans would rob a bank and kill for right now. And then you're not 134th in tackles for loss in the country. You win another game. So I'm taking over. I think it's 6 or 7 wins. It's certainly not more than that, but I'm going over for the 4th year in the row. Plant the flag. Let's go.
All right. So going over the win total is Ryan Herrings drafting Kyle Pitts, is what I heard. That's what we've got to like this time. I tell you what, or Dave. What's David Cross's character on Arrested Development?
Which one is he?
He's the guy with the glasses. Anyway, he's got the great line where he goes, "Did it work for those people? No. These people always delude themselves into thinking that it will work for them, but it never does." But it might work for us.
Eventually, it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's the spirit. Mark, you saw Wisconsin last year play USC. You think they're going over 5.5 this year?
Alex Green's still on that defensive staff there, Ryan?
No, he left. Mark, did you know that he's a full-time defensive coordinator now?
Yeah.
Donde está?
UCF. That's what I said, Mark. I couldn't believe it. So when I first came across that piece of news and talked about it on Locked On College Football, I did a sextuple take to make sure and confirm that he was the defensive coordinator for UCF, but he is.
So I'm going to give Ryan a little glimmer of hope. You got one more win on your schedule now. Your defense automatically gets better when he's not involved in that scheme. Now, I'm looking at your schedule. And I'm thinking, all right, well, maybe you're 2-0 out of the box. Then you got Alabama. That Maryland game's a toss-up. Michigan, where are you going with that one? Iowa, always a boring game. Ohio State's going to whoop.
Whoa. Hold on. That depends on your definition of boring, Mark, because
do you like hunt fests?
that's what I was just about to say. Some people across this great country love watching a punter be the MVP of the game.
Well,
Not in the Locked On Pac-12.
No, but this is Locked On Big Ten.
Ironically,
True.
we had the Ray Guy Award winner last year, so it's kind of funny. It's interesting. But yeah, it's true, Spencer. You can squint your eyes. It happened.
I just realized that.
Yeah, you know what? I can see them getting 6 wins, and I think 7 is your high point. That you've touched the ceiling at 7.
Roman, I'm glad you found that as funny as I did. This is what happens when Brandon doesn't show up because his team is in a national championship game. We're going to finish recording way before that national championship game.
Did I miss the punchline? I mean, what happened?
No, the view on YouTube was too zoomed in. So Ryan's overly zoomed
like Ryan.
face was even more blown up. And I just realized it because I looked in the top right corner when Roman said Locked On Pac-12 and I thought, wait, where's the Big Ten logo? Oh, dear. Now we made the adjustment. So, Roman, I'll toss this to you. Washington has to go to Camp Randall, which, as this Oregon guy I know will tell you, is not an easy place to go. No matter how good your team is, it is hard, particularly later in the year. That game will be played on November 8th. How worried are you about going to play the Badgers at their home stadium?
Well, personally, I hope I can go to that game. That's something I'm trying to make an effort to go do this season. I'm certainly very concerned about what just that stadium is. I hear great things about the environment. I very much enjoyed Washington, not Washington. I'm all over the place today. Watching Oregon, almost collapse down the stretch there. That
was like the highlight of Washington's season last year, wasn't it?
Wisconsin.
No, the highlight was watching DeMond Williams in the bowl game. That was just.
I see. The good old Sun Bowl.
Hey, I'm taking the wins where I can right here. Okay.
I would too.
Yeah, I know, because if we, turn back the clock any further, you're just gonna be like, oh no, that didn't happen.
The only season that matters is the one we can talk about.
Wisconsin, Spencer. We're talking about Wisconsin.
That's true. We are talking about Wisconsin. You're right.
And Ryan, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm not completely sold on Billy Edwards just yet. I just as somebody who is one of these West Coast guys, as Spencer and Mark can attest, I can't get in the boat of, hey, okay-ish quarterback play is fine by me. And I'm sure that is certainly an upgrade over what you saw last season. But I can't get in the boat on that just yet. It's one of those things where that is just so important. And even in the Big Ten, as I'm still getting used to, we can hand the ball off 45 times a game. I'm still personally not used to that. But I have to take the under right now. I look at the schedule and I say that is going to be really tough. And, I think that Washington game right now is a toss-up to bring it back to Spencer's original point there. That is going to be a very, very tough place to play for anybody who does need to go in there. But I have to take the under right now, especially, you're talking about, you took the over 3 straight years in a row. You're doing it again. So I feel like I need to just kind of take the other side of the coin there.
Herrings, I'm gonna side with you on this one. I like the over 5.5 for Wisconsin. Here's my reasoning. Every time they need a break to come home and play a winnable game, they get it, right? You go to Alabama. Well, that's going to be a loss. Then you come back home, boom, you get to play Maryland in the Billy Edwards Jr. revenge game, right? No shot Wisconsin loses that one. Then you go at Michigan. That's tough. Not unwinnable, but tough at the big house. And what would you like to do after that? Come back home. Oh, yeah, against Iowa, whose offense I'm never going to trust, particularly away from Kinnick. Then you play Ohio State at Oregon. That's a tough stretch because you go home on the road. But then Washington at Indiana, host Illinois at Minnesota. I don't see why Wisconsin can't win as many as 3 of those games. I'm not picking him to win 4, but I think they win at least 2. And if they win 3, I think they go over pretty easily. So I'll plant my flag on the Badgers get back to their bowling ways. They are the bowling Badgers in 2025 once again. Will the Big Ten be a national championship conference once again this year? That is really hard to see. Will it be a third straight year for the Big Ten winning the national championship? I want to start with a proposition or an idea, suggestion, call it whatever you'd like. And Roman, I'll go to you first on this. The best chance for the Big Ten to win a national championship for a third straight year is probably Penn State. Is that complete? Yes, Ohio State, as you mentioned earlier, is going to have a really good roster, but there is not a lot of continuity there. You got the same issues at Oregon. Michigan's got, again, losing a bunch of really good NFL players, but Penn State, as I said last week, should be viewed as the favorite in this conference. There is not going to be a better year for them to win it. So you might very well go through the Big Ten and say, hey, your best chance to win a third straight national title is the Penn State Nittany Lions. How do we feel about that, Roman?
Horrible. Spencer, you read my mind. That was exactly what I wanted to go with this. I wanted to start this by saying, yeah, the Penn State's the best chance. And I feel horrible about that. Where I look at Drew Aller, I know they're returning a lot of good players, right? I love their running back duo. Drew Aller coming back is certainly a very important part of this. But we saw the way he played against Notre Dame. I'm not going to trust that guy in a playoff game again going forward. I can't get behind this. I can't trust James Franklin in those big games. I think that they have a lot of talent on that team, but there's too many question marks there. And, if you want to go down the road of one of these other favorites in the Big Ten, whoever you want to call them, I'm not saying the name of your team, Spencer, because I certainly don't.
Excuse me. I have no team. You see the stuff behind me. I am neutral arbiter of all things college football. That is my official title here at the Locked On Network.
My apologies, neutral arbiter of college
Thank
football.
you. Apology accepted. Continue.
But no, I can't trust James Franklin. I can't trust Penn State. And if Ohio State or Michigan, they have a breakout season, great. Right now, I can't talk about any of them because all I see is Penn State staring me in the face. And that absolutely terrifies me when it comes to, if you just got to push one team out there as of right now.
Mark, USC's not going to throw their hat into the ring and shock the world, right?
Why not? No. Look, here's the reason why everybody's looking over there and saying, James, it's up to you this year. And that's a big, heavy lift, James. You've never won a big game before, James, is because they're the only team that has their starter returning a quarterback with a lot of game experience. You need to have a quarterback who you can take over a game when the rest of the team might not be playing well. Everybody in this room right now they're saying, well, we like our quarterback. We think we got a good quarterback that can get the job done. But, so anytime you say but, you're about to contradict yourself. That's the situation right now. Penn State returns the best, finger quotes, quarterback in the conference. They're returning their 2 running backs. They're returning a bunch of dudes on defense. They have the most complete team. They have the best chance. Whether their schedule sets it up and Coach Franklin figures it out and doesn't have his quarterback feeling that noose around his neck as the game's getting close, late in games, that's where they're at. Plus, we can talk about the whole FBC and ESPN making sure they push their narrative. And you see how, when they push hard enough, you'll get 13 at-large bids in the NCAA tournament. So we'll see what happens in this playoff field coming up in 2020.
To be fair, on the 13 bids, I wouldn't exactly say the SEC underperformed. They had like 7 of the Sweet 16. It was pretty good.
13 at-large bids.
It's a little excessive. Like I didn't love seeing Texas in there. Like that felt like a bit of a stretch. But again, 7 teams in the Sweet 16.
Know your audience, Spence.
That's pretty.
Know your audience right now. Know your audience.
I'm just throwing out. I was like, pretty good.
Maybe a few extra teams in there, but yeah, know your audience. Locked on Big Ten here.
We'll see how everybody's talking when all of a sudden the big conference is pushing 4 and 5 teams in the playoffs. You think the SEC and the ESPN is going to sit around and go, we're okay with that?
Well, I mean, are you talking about for the playoff changes that will arrive for next college football season, not this upcoming one?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the Big Ten's going to have the same number of guarantees as the SEC. That'd be my guess. Just a suspicion, but
We'll see who's running the TV. That's who's in charge at that point. Because
yeah, I think TV execs have they've been running the show for I think for quite a while now. But anyway, Ryan, your thoughts on the national championship picture for the Big Ten?
Yeah, it's funny how the script is flipped a little bit, right? Now, everyone was getting on me picking the Badgers 4 years in a row. Now everyone's picking Penn State to suddenly do it after you haven't seen it in how many years with James Franklin?
I don't know about picking. I think you're just saying they're the last best hope.
But that's the thing. I don't think they are. See, that's what I'm saying, because they've never been the last best hope because they haven't been able to do it. I think you look at an Ohio State, you see, and I hear what you're saying, Roman and Mark. It's really good points about returning quarterback experience. That matters 100%. But I think you look, who's the best offensive player in the league is going to be on Ohio State with Smith. The best defensive player is probably Downs at Ohio State. They're going to figure out quarterback play because it's what they typically do with those weapons. And, Sayin is an athletic guy. They're going to figure it out. I trust Ryan Day way more to engineer a championship level team than I do Franklin. And by the way, where does Penn State go in the regular season? They go to Columbus. Like, schedules make it seasons. You talk about it's much easier to win the national title if you have a better regular season, improve your seeding. Penn State's not going to beat Ohio State in Columbus. That's going to be a caravan running through barbarian lands. It's just going to get raided and torched. They're going to get up there. So I don't think they're going to beat them in Columbus. I mean, maybe I'll be wrong, but I think it's Ohio State. And in terms of the Big Ten, now in terms of bigger pictures, the Big Ten going to repeat. You got to look at there's not a lot of great quarterback answers in the SEC. Not really. There's a couple.
It's Garrett Nussmeier, Lenore Sellers is back, DJ Lagway is good.
Nico, if you're going to bank on sophomore,
yeah.
The point is, there's not a lot you point to there and say, wow, that's a great player. Maybe Texas with Manning, in the second year. But my point is, I think Ohio State probably has as good a chance as anybody. I like them more than Penn State does. So that's where I would put my confidence as a Big Ten fan, just because I've seen enough from Aller. And Roman, you hit it. We saw what he did against Notre Dame. I don't trust that guy to win a title. I just don't. So I think it's Ohio State for me. Will they win? Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. It's a tough one. I think it's a toss-up.
Yeah. So here's where I've come down with this is when I think about the Big Ten teams, it's really easy to find a reason why not. Ohio State, Oregon losing too much. Michigan not going to be ready quite yet. Penn State, they struggle to break through even though they've got the team on paper to do it. But go through the SEC, you can do the same exact thought discussion, which is why I kind of come back to Clemson. I think it's a great year for Clemson to go out and win the national championship. Because, right now, who's the best team in the SEC? Or who's going to be? Georgia or Texas probably, right? They're both working in new quarterbacks. That has no guarantee. Now, they could both pop off. They're both really talented guys.
Arch Manning last year.
What's that?
Yeah, they did.
Texas looked better with Arch Manning last year. That's going to be a seamless transition, Spencer.
I think it can. I think it can be. Like right now, I've said
the best team in that conference.
I've said for a while Texas would probably be my national championship pick right now until we maybe hear a little bit more. Just because I think their defense is really good. I trust Sark on offense. I think Arch Manning's good. But there's a lot of I think, I hope, I wonder about all that sort of stuff. And maybe a Big Ten team sneaks in there by default. But, this is kind of like, like they could, maybe, possibly. But, like, the best quarterback in the SEC is Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. We think Brian Kelly's winning a national championship? Maybe. They're all in. They've got a great transfer portal class and all that sort of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if the Big Ten finds a way to walk into one by the end of the year. But at the outset, yeah, I don't think the chances of a three-peat are incredibly high. We'll call it there for today. Roman Tomashaw, Locked On Huskies. Mark Culkin, Locked On USC. Ryan Herrings, Locked On Badgers. I'm Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On all over the place. This has been the Big Ten Squad. We'll see you next time. And Ryan's camera is going to see him when he sleeps tonight. So that's something he's got to look forward to. We'll see everybody until then. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.